Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm just going to walk you through the latest electricity stats for August 2025. Here's a brief bio about myself. I'm a CPA, CGA. I have a wide range of experience for the past nearly 40 years working in different financial and IT roles. My agenda is the stats, and I'll go a little bit into the stats. So this is the what I typically do on a monthly basis is I compare the G7 countries and a couple other countries as well as a group of countries in terms of their percentage of power generation by generation type. So what you can see here typically is, and I'm looking at on the renewable side or the green sources, which is the one line there where you're seeing the yellow line of the 73.5%. So Canada is within the G7, one of the highest uh, clean power countries in the G7. But when you look at countries compared to Norway, they're pretty well almost 15 or 25% less than where Norway is because Norway invested heavily in hydropower. But you can see the trend line across where you can see each country in terms of the ones in there as well overall. On average, the globe is at 58.4%, the OECD, or sorry, at 46% for clean energy, and Canada is nearly double that in terms of where it is in terms of green energy. So that's something to bear in mind. You're also still seeing is a bulk of the power globally is still coming from fossil fuels, and that's natural gas and that's coal fire. So that's something to bear in mind. This gives you an idea on Canada's area. As you can see, nuclear energy is a big critical part, and so is hydro. And hydro, basically, the big areas are Quebec and BC, where we see most of the hydro production. And Hydro Quebec invested heavily in terms of their assets decades ago to build up the infrastructure on hydropower generation. Ontario went the opposite way, where they basically built up the uranium, and they're in the process of towards Darlington to implement a small modular nuclear reactor as part of addressing the load concerns. This gives you an example of Australia. Australia still generates a good chunk of their power from coal. There has been talk about moving to uranium, but there hasn't been like a viable plan to do that yet. There is talk more and more about natural gas because Australia is sitting on solid reserves of natural gas, but right now it's more of a political decision around wind and solar, and it'll be interesting what transpires as they try to look at retirement of coal burning power and looking at how they replace that load. Here's a look at the U.S. And if you look at the U.S. and you look at where coal was as little as 2010 under Bush, there's been a major shift, and we've seen this with the emission reduction in the U.S. is coal has shifted a lot more into natural gas, and natural gas is a big area. I've worked with a lot of natural gas companies, both on the production and the distribution side, and I've seen the build of the pipelines and the network, and that's something that's the U.S. is taking top priority in. The other area that they're focusing on is small modular reactors, where NuScale is working with companies like Tennessee Valley Authority and other entities to do small nuclear power reactors. Because the real question is, and I'll get into the future slides, is around this build of the data centers, because data centers are huge power consumers, and basically how are you going to support that along with your other industrial, residential, and commercial base. This just gives you an idea of where prices are, because when Donald Trump ran into office, he ran on a platform was basically reducing power inflation. Well, core inflation includes your shelter, includes your energy costs, and includes your food costs. And you can see here that we peaked at like 10.1%. That's around the post-COVID era. But over the last few years, we're seeing consistently 4% to 5% price growth in electricity rates. Now, where are we heading now? And I talked a bit about this. We're adding more and more commitments on data center capacity in different areas, geographies within the United States, whether that's in Ohio, whether that's in Wisconsin, whether that's in Arizona. And each one of these facilities require power. So how they support those projects in terms of power rates as well as the overall rate and cost is something governments are going to be held accountable in terms of what they do. There's a lot of work on extending existing power generation assets past their closure date due to the fact that they don't have replacement options for that power. So there's discussions around that. Viability of green hydrogen can continually evolves as technology becomes more and more viable to it, but there's still challenges with green hydrogen. Leveraging virtual power plants is really about how we manage the loads around wind, solar, and other power coming in terms of peak needs. Um, cities that are looking at this, the technology is still evolving as an area we still need to watch. Commercialization of small modular reactors, as I mentioned the previous slide, NuScale's big into this. So is Ontario Power Generation in Canada. So it's starting to grab roots. The viability of renewable natural gas. This is another option where we're sitting on a pile of gases that we vent from waste. That basically we can turn that and convert that in renewable natural gas and pipe it into facilities. So that's something to bear in mind. And maybe that's how they'll start looking at data centers in terms of burning garbage and stuff like that to manage the power. Capital investment by utility sectors, I've seen a commitment from multiple sides, from distribution to production to storage. All that commitment has been disclosed in the financial statements over the last few months. Learning lessons from LA. There's a lot of lessons we can learn from the LA fire, the Lahaina fire, and a lot of it still comes back to how we protect the grid, how do we decharge lines, how do we do better vegetation forestry management. All this is all about how we build resiliency into the grid. Viability battery storage, there's been some challenges because I've seen Northern California's had fires in the past with lithium storage, and there's evolution around the capabilities of batteries that continues to evolve. That's something to bear in mind. Wind and solar, there's a lot about what the future is. Well, wind will continue to evolve, but it may become like solar. It may become less of a focus point if other technologies ride. They can provide a better load factor. The Trump administration has made it clear, and more countries are kind of getting more concerned about the impact of wind is having on migration, whether that's ocean life or bird life or other sort of habitat, is becoming a big issue. Here's some additional links. I write blogs all the time on LinkedIn and other social media sites. You can find my work accordingly. And this is my email if you would like this presentation or I can help you assist you with anything. As I said before here, I'm a policy expert in environment and social governance, which I've rebranded to tie into the way it's being reported now into sustainability. So if I can help you in any way, then reach out to me. Thank you.